Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And we're back after a week off. Last week, I was at the beach with the family, so I apologize for missing a week there. But hey, got to take vacations every once in a while and hit that reset button. But I'm back in the hot seat and ready to bring you hot fire podcasting content just for your earbuds, your mind, and your soul. But before we get to today's episode, let's give a special shout out to all of the newest patrons that have stepped up to be sustaining members of the Bikes or Death podcast. As we learned recently, I can't do it without you. And so your support is critical to producing this show. So let's go ahead and give a big, warm welcome to the newest patrons, starting with Christopher Barata, Carrier Dennis, Miles Camp, Brian Farron, Mike Zandy, Timothy Default, Ryan Gilmore, Ryan Zimmer, Katie McGuire, Bradley Ortega, Lars Smith, Martin Holdridge, Johnny D. Martin, Brent Young, Guinevere Birch, Kevin Emery, Blake Kingfisher, Kristen Wiley, Andrew Cullen, and Kevin Killitz. Seriously, thank you all so much for signing up. Make sure you join us over on the private Bikes or Death Patreon page over there on Facebook. Get in on the conversation and find out some behind the scenes going ons over here at Bikes or Death. We got a great little community over there, and I would love for you to join us online. Also coming soon for patrons only is the next Bikes or Death after party episode, going to be with Claire Panisha, who I interviewed while I was up in Stillwater, Oklahoma a few weeks ago. And due to the content of this episode, we've decided to take it off the main airwaves and make it available to patrons only. So if you're interested in having access to that exclusive content, get in on the conversation over on Facebook. And of course, take advantage of some patron perks in addition to supporting this show and making sure that I can continue to produce it. You can find all of that over at patreon.com/bikes or death. All right, everybody. Well, something a little bit different today in the way of advertising. Typically, companies would just send me a script to read. But this week, I thought I would bring in Jared Lensmeyer, who's one of the owners of Ruby Coffee Roasters, to tell us about his company right from his mouth. Today, I want to dig into you, Jared, one of the owners of Ruby Coffee Roasters. You know, when I put out like a call to action and said, hey, Bikes or Death is open to working with some companies, you were one of the first ones that reached out to me. And actually, you were a listener of the podcast and stuff. And so I wanted to know, like, why do you think Ruby Coffee would resonate with the Bikes or Death listeners?
Well, I'm a big fan of the podcast, so I'm excited to be a supporter and excited to collaborate with you. As a cyclist myself, just knowing that Ruby supports a variety of cycling endeavors and projects and clubs. So we have a local club here where we are, and we make donations to events and a variety of cycling related lifestyle and cultural events. So I think listeners would like to know that about us. But also, I think the values and ideals that define Ruby are really probably appealing to somebody who identifies more as a bike packing, ultra endurance kind of adventure mindset. And I guess by that, I mean, we have some products that specifically are focused on that sort of category with our ready to drink or single serving options, but also just the ethics behind what we do. The fact that we are this tiny, independently owned business out in the middle of Wisconsin. I think that just the story I felt would really kind of resonate with your listeners.
I mean, that is why I wanted to bring you on so you could share a little bit about, you know, you as a person and you as a company, because whenever we hopped on the phone to have our initial call, all the things that you talked about are the exact types of things that I do believe in, the types of companies I want to promote. I'm really looking forward to this partnership. I'm really looking forward to more of these chats, and we can maybe get into more of the technical aspects of how to roast coffee and the different options that y'all have and stuff.
Well, that sounds great. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. It's been a lot of fun being able to be honestly in a position now with this business to be able to kind of like reach out and support projects that I personally am excited about too, because it wasn't too long ago that Ruby was just sort of an idea of mine. And we were roasting coffee in a garage in the house that I grew up in. So now 8 years later, here we are. And, I get to do some more fun stuff, which is really cool.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Looking forward to the partnership and, man, really enjoying the coffee. Until next time, I'll just be drinking some coffee.
Until next time. Okay. Bikes or death.
Thank you, Jared, so much for coming on and sharing with the Bikes or Death audience. And remember that listeners of this show receive 15% off a one-time purchase over at rubycoffeeroasters.com, or you get 20% off the first shipment of a subscription. Okay, well, today's episode is with Sarah Swallow, who is a person that I've followed and enjoyed her content, her stories, just following along as she's gone on all sorts of pretty amazing trips. She started out as a bicycle shop owner and found out that wasn't the right path for her and was able to carve out a really neat niche in this new sector of expedition bike packer or expedition cyclist or whatever you want to call it. But I've been a fan of hers for a long time. And so this was a great chance to get to know her a little bit. And of course, talk about her second place finish on this year's Tour Divide Classic. Now, she did an excellent interview with Jambi, who was her social media liaison for this year's Tour Divide. And then after she completed, they did a video interview. And that interview was very heavily about Tour Divide. I'll be honest, I kind of spent a little bit of time getting to know her a little bit in the beginning. And we had a time window that we were trying to fit in. So we didn't get quite as into the weeds with Tour Divide stuff as I would have liked to. But, for me, a lot of times it really comes down to just getting to know the people behind the Instagram post or the story or the rad trip or whatever it is. And I truly enjoyed getting a chance to get to meet and hang out with Sarah for a little while. And I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So without further ado, let's have Miles Arbor take it away with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You let that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to congratulate you on finishing the Tour Divide. Second place is awesome. And I guess first off, how long have you been off the Divide and how do you feel? How are you feeling? Any aches and pains?
Yeah, I guess today would be 2 weeks. And yeah, no, I feel great. It's 2 weeks. I think I finished like July 1st. So yeah, it'd be 2 weeks today. Yeah, no aches and pains. Yeah, I mean, like I had like lost weight, during the ride. So I've gained all that weight back, which is great. I'm back to my normal weight. But yeah, I've just been kind of taking it easy and felt pretty good trying to stretch the quads out. But I've been preparing for the Rift gravel race. So I haven't really been taking much time off the bike. I've, been riding every day still and started doing like intervals to try to like get my.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right into intervals, huh?
Yeah.
When is that race? And I'm actually not familiar with that one.
That's a week from tomorrow, Saturday. So, and that's, I guess that's July 24th or 26th or something. But yeah, it's a 125-mile gravel race in Iceland. So it goes through, crosses rivers, goes over like volcanic fault lines and volcanic.
Wow.
So it sounds like, it might not be like the longest distance I mean, it's still pretty long, but like, it sounds like it's the elements and the route surface that makes this ride exciting. And of course the scenery. So I'm excited. It'll be the first time I've traveled since before COVID. So.
Yeah, no kidding. A lot of us are kind of, first time back racing. Races are opening up and you can travel again with restrictions. So it is exciting. And it's also exciting from a podcasting standpoint, because now we have more interesting things to talk about. For a year there is kind of like, so how's your lockdown going, And
right. Everybody's doing the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a lot more exciting to be able to get on here and talk to people. Are you familiar with Chris Burkard?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So he's been on the show a couple times, and that's kind of how he came on my radar, was through his expeditions in Iceland specifically. He owns the record for the it's the Wow cyclotron, whatever what they call it, something like that, where it's the ring road all the way around Iceland. So he holds the world record for the fastest time around Iceland.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know.
It is, and he's a photographer,
And, I rode with Chris last year, and he's a relatively new cyclist, like within the last 2 or 3 years. And he is just doing all these amazing things. And yeah, I was definitely, following heavily when he was covering the erupting volcano. So I got kind of sucked into the volcano coverage for sure. So I'm looking forward.
Dude, his volcano coverage was on fire.
Totally.
Yeah. He's a great ambassador for the sport. I mean, he has a huge platform and can capture. He's a very good visual storyteller and a written storyteller and all those things. And yeah, his story is amazing. I mean, just picked up a bike, started commuting in California, and really got bit by the bug. And it's not uncommon. We talk about this a lot, where when you get bit by the cycling bug, it can consume your life, Well, first, when were you bit by the cycling bug, if we're going to call it that? I mean, when, everybody goes through their evolution, and at some point it's just like, okay, this is my thing.
Right. Well, so my evolution was probably, a little different, because I started working with bikes before I started riding bikes as a hobby. And so, yeah, I started working at a bike rental in Loveland, Ohio when I was 12 years old. And I worked there for 8 years. And that experience working with bikes just made me realize not only do I to work for myself, because I kind of just worked by myself at that bike rental and managed, all the day-to-day operations. But I also just love seeing how much joy, traveling to Loveland, Ohio, this small town, and renting a bike, and how much joy it was just to ride a cruiser bike down a bike path along a river. And, for these folks that would travel from, downtown, or, they would travel from all over to do that. That was the bug for working with bikes. And then I, started working at bike shops after that, and then, eventually owned my own shop. But I didn't really start riding bikes until I graduated from high school, and I was, I had played field hockey, and my parents were runners. And so I thought running was the only thing that you could do for exercise. And I hated running. I've never liked running. I've just, terrible. And so my dad, he had multiple knee surgeries, and he was told he couldn't run anymore. And so he had picked up road cycling just, the year before, and my mom had gotten a bike. And so once I graduated from high school, I started riding her bike on rides with my dad, and just quickly got into just just loved how the type of exercise at first, how, it was just so low impact. But then also just eventually it just went down. I just went down a total rabbit hole. I did, sprint triathlons and cyclocross and mountain bike, and commuted everywhere. And then once I found gravel riding and bike touring, that was a whole nother phase of just a deep dive. So I just love all aspects of riding. I just, anything that involves bike riding, I will enjoy. But these days I don't ride very much. I don't choose to ride on the road very much, the pavement. So yeah.
I could guess, but why is that?
Oh, it's just because it just is so, unsafe, like with cars, but not only that, it's, you get a certain amount of like peace and enjoyment from like having the solitude of a gravel road or single track trail. Like there's a whole element of anxiety and stress that's involved with riding on pavement when there's cars always passing. Like,
oh yeah,
you can't even escape it. Like, cause you're always on the side of, even if you're on the side of the road, you still have all that noise and stuff. So yeah, I just like
yeah. Mentally, for me, mentally, even you're always having to think about the cars. You're always having to be extremely safe, and you just can't relax and like lower the stress of the ride. For me, I'm the same way. I avoid the road like a plague. I'm all about safety, man. I mean, it's too often we're hearing about somebody getting injured or hit or something like that, and it's just not for me if I can avoid it.
Right. Totally.
And if we're going to talk about relying on motor vehicleists with their cell phones to be concerned about us, it's not the world we live in, and so getting off the beating road is where it's at. When did you find gravel? What year did you kind of find that transition into like the outdoors and kind of exploring more on your bike?
Yeah, I think I found it in probably like 2011 or 2012. I just like kind of started doing, I had done like this, I think it was called like the Frankenbike 50, some grassroots ride in Ohio. And, I had been doing cyclocross, right before this. And I did cyclocross for like 3 years, and it was fun, but I just didn't like it. Well, I wasn't cut out for cyclocross, like those short bursts, of energy. But I just love this Frankenbike 50 because I was just riding my cyclocross bike on these like dirt roads. And, with my background with doing like road cycling, it just kind of combined a lot of the things I like. It was just, not as technical as single track, but more entertaining than riding pavement. And so that ride led me to kind of start exploring, southern, Southwest Ohio, and like the gravel roads that were, within 2 hours drive from me in Cincinnati. And yeah, so I just started exploring, and that's really like looking for gravel roads and finding gravel roads and riding gravel roads in Southwest Ohio and northern Indiana and, northern Kentucky and eastern Indiana was kind of like how I just fell in love with Ohio in that region of the world for the first time in my life, because I kind of resented being there for a while.
Are you still in Ohio?
I'm not. No, I'm in Durango, Colorado. And actually my parents just sold their house of 26 years and moved into an Airstream full time. So Ohio is no longer home.
How much are you influencing your parents, and how much are your parents influencing you? I stalked you on I've been following you for a long time, and I know your parents ride, and it seems like there's a good dynamic there.
Yeah, for sure. And, I definitely started riding bikes because of my parents. Like, my dad got me into it. And then I think I also, this like concept of like signing up for big challenges, like intimidating challenges. I get that from my dad as well, because he does that. And, he's done Unbound multiple times. He's done lots of different big events, and, he's by no means a very quick cyclist, but he is just, consistent. He still goes out there. It doesn't matter if he's like last place or whatever. It's like, he's doing it. So yeah, just super inspired by him. And, but I think in terms of like living a bit more nomadically, they definitely got that from me, because when I went and started like riding my bike across the country and living in my van, there were definitely a lot of questions about like what my plan was, like what I was doing. It wasn't like as accepted as it is today, where you can learn how to do it on YouTube, so yeah, it's just so, it's kind of coming full circle. It's just really awesome to see them, making this step. And I just think it's like so good, for people to just kind of step out of your comfort zone and switch things.
I'm excited for them.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I assume that they're retired now and they got their Airstream and they can go visit beautiful places and do cool things. And, life doesn't get stale if you're out there always exploring and finding new ways to push yourself or new things to see or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm one of six kids. So they've got a lot of my siblings to go visit all around the country. So they won't be bored.
Where do you come in the line of the 6?
I'm third.
Okay, you're right in the middle. You're the middle child.
I'm very classic middle child. Yeah.
What is a classic? I was the oldest, so I know I beat up on my brothers and sisters pretty well, and I was a test kid. What is the middle kid known for?
Well, so like my oldest sibling, I would say like both my older siblings, I consider, this is just from my perspective, like they probably have a totally different story, but like I always looked at them as like the golden child. Like my oldest sister was very responsible and just never got into any trouble. And then my older brother seemed to just like, he was like the golden boy, the golden child, he could just get away with everything, like didn't really matter. But I was kind of like the true troublemaker. Like I would actually get into some real trouble. And I think I pushed the boundaries of what my parents were comfortable with, a bit up until that point. And so I was a bit more disciplined. I mean, I received a lot more discipline, but after me,
you earned more discipline.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, all my younger siblings, my parents were broken in by the time they got me out of the house. And, my parents like really kind of loosened up the restrictions and
I was the oldest and I did it differently than your brothers. I went to jail 6 times before the age of 21. And so I was just nothing crazy, just drugs and just being just being dumb. But man, I did all the things. And then my brothers and sisters were like, okay, we don't want to go down that road. Like I gave them every example to like not follow that path. And my parents could be like, see, don't want to do that.
Yeah, totally. And, I think I did a similar thing. I mean, I didn't go to jail, but like, I think my siblings, there were some of my siblings that were like, I don't want to be like Sarah, But,
did that have anything to do with you working at a bike shop when you were 12? I'm curious about that. Was that your own thing or were your parents trying to control you by giving you a job or what was that?
I always kind of had a thing with the authority but I didn't really become super troublemaker until I was in high school. So that was like, I think it was just my parents they're like, if you want something, if you want to buy something, then you need to, pay for it yourself. That was kind of why I kind of started working in the bike rental. And I think, honestly, I think it really was really good for me. I mean, it really taught me, really good sense, like work ethic. My boss was, ex-military and a firefighter. And so, he always had a really like nice long list of hard things for me to do and would make sure I would do them, very well. But I think it was a good thing for me at that age. And my work ethic was kind of outside, separate from my like social life. The trouble happened in my social life.
Yeah. As it tends to do. Well, paint a picture for me. What do you do for a living?
I do things, but what I've just come to tell people is adventure cyclists, and I say that because I am sponsored by Specialized Bicycles, Ride with GPS, Rafa, and Umbras, and they sponsor me, and in return, I use their equipment. Oh yeah, you got them. That's good.
I watched your Jamby. I thought you were going to have them on, so I wore the Umbras.
I normally do, but I haven't been outside yet today. So.
There you go. Yeah, no need to put them on yet. Yeah. I just got my Umbras. They sent me a pair to try out, and so I'm digging them, man. You don't have to worry about them like sliding around.
Exactly. They're so that like, I gotta say that is like one of my most favorite products in the world. Like I always have them on, and I have so many like different pairs now, and it's so nice because they're just so small. Like you can, like I've got a clear set, I've got a yellow lens, and then I've got the darker lens, and like just they're as big as lenses essentially. And you just always,
Yeah, that's it.
It's so great, and they're so comfortable. Before I had Ombras, I like had a really hard time wearing sunglasses just because they weren't very comfortable, and I'd lose them or break them. And so because of that, I wasn't like protecting my eyes enough. And so I like you get stuff in your eyes, like you damage your eyes from the sun. But yeah, now I'm just wearing them all the time.
Yeah, I really love them. I was, for people who don't know, they have like a string instead of like a hard the arm that's typically there, that's a fixed piece of plastic or whatever. It's just a string, and it like holds onto your head. And you don't even have to put them on very tight, you just very lightly, and they won't go anywhere. They just stay right where they're supposed to be. So I just got back from the beach, a family beach vacation, and last time I was at the beach I lost $150 pair of Oakleys, right? But like you don't have to worry about these. So anyway, great advertising for Umbras.
Yes, exactly. It's easy to do. It really is.
The first time I went through Chick-fil-A, the first time I wore them, I went through a Chick-fil-A line. The first person that saw me was like, "Oh my gosh, I saw those on Instagram. What are those? Oh, those are so cool." And like asking me all kinds of questions and stuff. I was like, okay, these are cool.
Yeah. And they're a Kickstarter company. They started on Kick.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. So you're a professional adventure cyclist. I think you're one of the few, Lael. Lachlan Morton for sure. He's come from the road. But there's not a lot of people that have carved out a niche in this kind of new bike packing space. Can you talk to a little bit about what that process was like, and how you even created a job in an industry that's like this didn't really exist, 5-6 years ago or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, that's when I started, was 5 or 6 years ago. I had the bike shop until 2015, and really I got involved. I first, became an adventure cyclist in 2014 or 2015, when Specialized reached out. They had been seeing so what I did at Swallow Bicycle Works was we would go on rides, like epic gravel, long distance gravel rides, like day rides, but they would just be, all different kinds of conditions and long day gravel rides, which, at that time, gravel wasn't as big as it is today.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And we were doing some bike tours. We had just gotten into bike touring. But yeah, so I would promote the bike shop through using photos from the rides that we were doing, and telling stories and writing stories on Swallow Bicycle Works website. And, so I got hooked up with Specialized through that. Essentially, I used that first year of the income that I received from Specialized to, commit to doing the Transamerica Trail, the dual sport motorcycle route across, the U.S. from east to west, that follows all dirt roads. So, we had already.
Which one is that? Who organized that one?
That's a dual sport motorcycle route. And I got Sam, can't remember Sam's name, but it's called the TAP for short. It's known amongst dual sport motorcyclists. It's like a through route for them. And it's all on gravel roads, and, bike packing since then, bikepacking.com or someone has created a race on that route.
I think that's Billy Rice that did that. That's what I'm trying to recall.
Yeah.
But sorry to get you off track there.
American Trail Race. I think that's
what it is. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Tom and I were the first cyclists that we know of that rode that route, on bicycle. Oh, wow. We had already been in a place where we needed to we knew that the bike shop wasn't something we wanted to do anymore. So we were like, okay, we're going to close the bike shop and go do this ride, and then come back and decide the next move. And so on that ride, I just kind of like realized that I just loved doing that, like, and that I want to do that more. And that's all I knew. And so, there's kind of a bit of a transition phase. We moved out to Petaluma, California for a little bit. We were going to maybe work for Bruce Gordon Cycles. And then, again, I was like, I don't want to be in a bike shop. Like, I know I keep getting sucked in. Like, I want, there's some element, there's some part of me that loves working in bike shops and loves that atmosphere. But I was really being called internally to ride my bike more. And so again, we, rode all throughout the Pacific Northwest. We rode from Portland to Whitefish, and then from Whitefish all the way, through British Columbia, back down to Washington, through Washington, and just kept doing these rides and kind of living in the van, and did the Baja Divide and just kept going with it. And all the while I was just kind of focusing on how to make, this lifestyle more sustainable for myself.
Yeah.
And so it first started with the sponsorship. The original sponsorship was Specialized, but then I just kind of sought out, additional sponsors, but I also, wrote stories for magazines and blogs. And, these days, I'm also, putting on events. I'm publishing bike routes, and then, I just stepped down from Radical Adventure Riders, which when I was part of it was called WTF Bike Explorers. So that was kind of a project I spent 4 years on. So I kind of do different projects at different times and supplement my income in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. It's really interesting just as a bystander that I see you traveling. I mean, not during COVID, obviously, but, before, you were everywhere, just traveling all the time. And I'm always curious, how are people able to do that sustainably? There's not a lot of people that are doing it. And but I'm hopeful. I think that, as the sport grows, there's more money, and it's going to allow for more people to be able to pursue this as something that they really love doing. Bike shops have always kind of been the place that people go if they want a career in the cycling industry, if they're not racing, right? It's like racing or bike shop. And where do you think you fit in? You just came off the Tour Divide as a racer. You're going to a gravel race, but you're also huge into touring. Where do you think that you fit into that mix?
I see myself as like more of an adventure lifestyle type of person. The racing, like I said, I approach races as someone like taking on a challenge for themselves to just see where they kind of stack up. I have, I say I'm not very competitive until I'm actually in the moment. And then, I do have a competitive side, but I wasn't like mentally prepared, ahead of time. So I don't really consider myself a racer. And something that I just absolutely love about my job is just that I don't have to be competitive to do what I'm doing. Like I'm sponsored to kind of live the life that I want to live. And I really love that. And I think a lot of companies are becoming less focused on the results and more focused on the person as a whole and like what they're contributing to the sport. So I am happy to see that. But yeah, I still think of myself as more of like a lifestyle adventure, but still someone that wants to challenge themselves through races and events and stuff. Because sometimes I just want to see how I do,
Yeah, for sure. That's a great segue to the Tour Divide, but let's start with social media. Because, to some extent, you are, you're a paid athlete, you're a paid, I don't know, you're kind of in the gray lines between an athlete and an adventure cyclist, but, you're paid to tell stories and live this lifestyle. But I also know, because I follow you, that you struggle with social media, like probably many people in the outdoors. They aren't really like wanting to sit behind a laptop or a iPhone screen and just thinking of content to put out. But can you talk about some of your own personal struggles with social media?
Yeah, I think I've always struggled a little bit with social media, but I think it really came to a head last year just because of all the social angst that was happening last year. And I realized that it was just really confusing, like what, how to share. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of just struggle with the whole, whether it's real and community and like trusting people and spending time. It's like, it's an addiction. Social media is an addiction and I'm addicted to it. And so I've realized that and, realized the importance of managing that time. And then I also struggle with, I don't post very much. When I post, I post when I have something important to say, but I struggle with the whole, like, being an advertisement kind of stuff. So I've really kind of negotiated that aspect of having to promote companies through my Instagram account, which is nice. What I do for companies is I collect content like photos and videos, and I send them that content and they can use it in the way that they want to use it. Yeah. So that's been really helpful. But yeah, I think what I kind of realized was just that I would like to diversify the way that I want to communicate with people. I consider myself more of a medium format to long format writer. And so the short, caption style Instagram, I wouldn't be able to get into like the depth that I wanted to get into and the nuance. And so I kind of started focusing my energy last year into making a newsletter and kind of putting more energy back into my website. And that feels like it's more permanent, and yeah, just with social media, I'm just being just very conscious of my use. So when I don't have to post or share anything, I delete the app and I block the website on my phone. So I can't access it on my phone. And that's about all I need to manage my use, because I can still get on if I need to check, on my browser, on my computer, but that's not as like easy on my phone. Cause you realize like when you start doing that, like how frequently you get on your phone just to like look at Instagram. And, when you can't do it, you realize how often you actually go through those movements to try to get on there. So, I've just been kind of really, I've also been reading a lot about the impacts of social media. And I think it is a problem for a lot of people.
Have you read that book, Irresistible?
No, I haven't. I have not read that.
I haven't read it either. I listened to a podcast with the author of the book, and so I kind of got bits and pieces through that, but essentially talking about our addiction to technology. We're all, and I mean, that's why it makes it an interesting concept. I mean, us as humans, I mean, Facebook and social media has been around for 10 years or something like that. I mean, we're still like learning how to like interact with it on many ways. And it is a weird thing because for me as a content creator, I am able to like use their platform to connect directly with my audience. There's no middleman, and so there's some great things about it, but it is extremely addictive, and so I haven't gone as far as I don't think I'm in a place where I could do what you've done, but it is neat that you've been able to kind of cultivate these relationships. And we all need to do this, build the life that you want, right? And it doesn't happen overnight, but it takes time, but find the right brands and the right partners that will work with you in a way that's authentic to yourself. When you were talking, are you familiar with Alexandra Houchin?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she rides everything single speed. She's won Tour Divide and Colorado Trail Race. She's done a lot of stuff, but she's sponsored by Chumba, and she doesn't have an Instagram account, doesn't have Facebook, only has she will not post it. She's like, I won't. She has a blog and that's it. But that's another example of a brand it's like, I get it. We just want you to be you and do it your way, and let's figure out a way to work together,
Right. Totally. I think that's great. And, I've got a lot of friends here in Durango. Like most of my immediate friends, don't have social media, don't use social media. So I'm kind of actually like the oddball out, like with all these like social media life stresses and it's like not relatable for them. But, But yeah, I think also is, I got to say that I've met some of my best friends, because of social media. But then there's also this aspect where, you think you're friends with people, but really this is not a real, it's not real, it's sometimes, you got to look at it like it's not real. And, it's funny because I've been talking with some folks and just talking about how real of experience I had with the community that showed up before the Tour Divide, the community that showed up to help me when my bike broke before the Tour Divide. And I was just like, that's just such a rewarding and like fulfilling example of real community. And that felt so good. Like, and especially like after a year of COVID, everybody was so isolated. And so their only outlet for community was Instagram. And so it's just really important to kind of, make sure you're getting both,
I appreciate you coming on so much and everybody who comes on this show, because when I started the podcast, I started it 3 years ago because I wanted to get the story behind the social media post. There wasn't a lot of, other than like a blog post that you could read, there wasn't a lot of, hey, let's just talk about how did you get into cycling? How did you, whatever your path is, and everybody has a different path, which makes it interesting. But I'm like you, I'm a medium. I'm probably on the more long form side of things. I just did a Bobby Windle interview that was 4 hours long.
Wow.
So you like,
I'm not surprised.
No, not surprising. Yeah, he got the record. Alexander Houchin was 3 hours. We've had some long ones, but you just, like if you're trying to talk about something and express an idea or an opinion on something, and you're trying to put it in a succinct way on social media, and you edit it and make sure it's perfect and all that stuff, you lose so much of who Sarah Swallow really is, And so I'm always so grateful whenever we have a chance to just talk and be like, what are you thinking? How do you approaching whatever it is that we're going to talk about,
Right. Yeah. Like, who is this person? What are their values? Like, what's behind the image on Instagram? Because you can't actually get that through Instagram. So yeah, podcasts and stories and videos are all just kind of add, just another layer of knowing people, getting to know people.
Speaking of social media, Jambi is very good at social media. Like she might be the best.
Yep.
And I'm sure a lot of people were following along, but Jambi was your social media liaison for your Tour Divide this year, which was fabulous. Where did that idea come from? Was it born out of your own like angst with social media? Like,
yeah, it was, honestly. Like, I knew, like, when I decided to do the Tour Divide, I was like, at the same time, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do in terms of like content, And so I just wanted to take as much pressure off of myself as possible for this ride. And part of that was not having to deal with social media and like having to post to Instagram, because I knew it was going to be too hard to do that. And so, yeah, my first thought, Georgia and I have known each other for probably like 3 or 4 years now. She's come to the US multiple times. We've done tours together, and I went out to Australia and we did like a 3-week bike tour together, and we just connect so great. And, we stayed in touch all through COVID, and we were talking, really pretty regularly, every couple of weeks. And so, yeah, we feel really good. And so, yeah, it was my first thought to just ask Georgia to, just take over my Instagram account while I do the Tour Divide. And, we had no idea like how that would look. We were just kind of like, we're like, I was like, you do you, and you tell me what you think, I'll do, or what you think I should do to like help this along. And, yeah, she kind of just like took the reins and gave me like projects to do, like filming YouTube videos and just taking certain videos. And she would, she'd just get in her news person persona and just do all those awesome skits and just kind of blend both. Yeah, it was just so dang refreshing, because not only was it just fun to work with my friend on this, but she would just like tell me, take some videos, like, just give me some loose direction. And I would just take the videos. They wouldn't be perfect. They would be like pretty, crappy videos, like not very good.
Yeah.
And I would just send them to her and she'd be like, these are great, awesome. And then she would just make something awesome out of it. And so like, it kind of encouraged me to like kind of step out of my shell more and produce more. And it was just a really, really cool thing. I really enjoyed it.
She did a fantastic job. How much were you able to actually follow along with her reporting of your Tour Divide? Because a lot of it was on her stories. Yeah. So after 24 hours, it's gone.
Right. Yeah. I probably missed some of the stories, but I still, I would check in. I had the app on my phone. I had Instagram on my phone for the ride just so I could easily check in. And, I was able to see it every, few days. And it would be just so fun for me. Like it would be so entertaining. And then like all the comments on it were just awesome. So it actually was like a really positive experience for me, with social media. Like it really like boosted me, because so many people were engaged and Georgia was just being hilarious. And, it was just something to look forward to, to look for when I got into town. So yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, we were all looking forward to it. If you were following along, I mean, her coverage was just the best. So, okay, so we got Jambi producing your social media. She obviously took a really, really fun approach to, her telling of your Tour Divide. What was your approach? What were your goals going into it? Not the social media aspect, actually the race. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so, I have never like ridden my bike loaded for 100 miles every day for like more than 3 days. And that was like 6 years ago on the Oregon Outback. So I had no idea what this would be like for me. And I didn't train by riding 100 miles in one day. Like I trained by riding 65, doing a bike tour where I rode like 65 miles one day, which also include like a 2-mile 1,000-foot hike a bike. And then like 55 miles the next day. And, I'm in Durango, Colorado. So I'm at altitude and steep. And my goal was to finish in 25 days, but my limit, I was like, cause I'm going to Iceland, I have to get pulled off the course in 32 days. So really that was kind of my focus, was just to meet my goal of, finishing in 25 days or 32 days, but while maintaining just this nice balance of maintaining my health and, happiness and enjoyment and having fun on the route. I have Epstein-Barr, which is mono. And so after big bike tours, I have gotten pretty dang sick. So I was just trying to be aware, like, I can't just go out and like kill myself out there, like I'm going to finish the ride and get super sick. Over the years, I've really just kind of been focusing on just maintaining a healthy balance for myself. And, that was my goal. I was, I wanted to have fun out there. I wanted to stay healthy. I wanted to, keep true to my intentions and just do the best ride I could do.
And what was your final time?
21 days. And 4 hours, 10 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You kicked your own ass.
I did. Yeah. I was, immediately upon like the first day or two, I realized that the course was, a lot more rideable and easier than I thought that it was going to be, just based on like stuff that I do myself. Like I do a bit more technical stuff with more climbing. And so it was a bit easier. And then, of course, I had never, ridden for that many hours in the day. I was riding from like just before sunrise until just after sunset every day. And that's a lot of hours to ride. And, so I was able to get a lot done in that time that I didn't expect as well. So got 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Felt really good about that. And, it's funny because I was looking at the track leaders after the ride, and it turns out that I actually had the second fastest average speed out of the whole field.
Whoa.
But it's just, a matter of
moving speed.
Moving speed. Yeah. And then the sleeping, the stopping speed is where, I get placed, because it's all a matter of how much you want to not stop. And, I'm just not willing to, at this point in my life, I'm not willing to do less sleep at this point. I think, I was just
not for that long. Yeah.
Yeah. I just felt healthy. I felt really healthy throughout the ride and maintained good mental health as well. And I think it was all because I was getting enough sleep.
Was it Lauren? I have her name written down here somewhere that got first place. Okay. I have her name written down. I'm missing it right now. I don't know how if you saw the dots from, the first and second place on the men's side with Brendan and Jay Peterberry. I actually had the second place men's finisher on. He was my last guest, Brendan, but they were so close the whole race. They were yo-yoing back and forth, and I mean, just always pretty close.
Yeah.
If you look at the women's race, you and Lauren were also really close. There wasn't any back and forth, but you were like on her tail the whole time. How aware were you of her dot, and were you chasing her,
Yeah. I mean, I was aware just because people were like texting me and telling me that I was so close. And, I did get a little sucked into the race element, the first few days. And I was chasing her, on day 2, day 3, I think. And then on day 4, it was like the hottest day on route. It was the ride from, for me, it was the ride from like essentially Helena to Butte. And, that was pretty much the hardest day for me on the ride. And at that point I was like, I need to slow it down. I need to if I'm going to finish, I need to revert back to my initial intention and take care of myself. This is a really long ride. And again, what was my plan going to be once I caught her? Pass her and then I'd blow up and then she'd just catch me again. So I actually really liked being right behind her the whole time. I kind of knew she was there. I mean, as the route and the course went on, she built her distance, built the gap, more because she just wasn't sleeping as much. She was definitely not, she was sleeping a lot less than me. And, but yeah, it was still funny the whole time because she was actually, it sounds like from what she told other people that told me, she was worried about me. And, I was essentially stalking her the whole time. And what annoying pressure would that be to be dealing with that the whole time? But at the same time,
I'd rather be in your shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I felt pretty good about it because I was having such a good ride and not feeling, tired or worn out. I didn't feel like I could go past her and maintain it, but I just felt really satisfied back there. And
well, it's interesting if you look at the sleep versus speed, and that's part of the equation is, how much sleep so you can, perform and ride as fast as you can versus it sounds like she wasn't sleeping as much, but if you were able to maintain that distance, it means you were riding faster than she was. So there's an interesting balance there.
Totally. Yeah. I think if you look at the numbers between Lauren and I, yeah, I mean, if I would have engaged, it would have been an entertaining race because she was also on a gravel bike too, and I was on a mountain bike.
Oh yeah.
So so very different approaches, and but yeah.
Let's talk about your bike. So, if anyone was following along, your bike fell off. Well, you tell the story. Your bike fell off a bike rack as you were going down the highway. What the heck?
Yeah, I know.
So what happened?
Thankfully, it wasn't a full-blown highway. It was, a interstate kind of smaller road. But just driving. We're out south of Sealy Lake en route to the start. We were going to get up near the start and just kind of camp and relax for 3 days before the ride started. And we're headed up, and we're about going 60 miles an hour, and we hit this bump in the road, and our our truck kind of like did this like seesaw bounce kind of thing. You could feel the bike rack flexing back there, and it snapped. The bike rack snapped, and something fell off the back of the car. I was like, what was that, to Adam? And he was like, I think it was a bike. And I was like, was it your bike? Like, I was hoping it was his bike. And he was like, no, I think it was your bike. And so we stopped, and yeah, I was, it was like seeing a pet get hit by a car. Like, it was just like running after it. And, at first it seemed like it was all superficial. The handlebars were kind of, out of position. The handlebar tape was totally ripped up. Like, seat was all ripped up, and pedals and components, there's nice shredded components. And I was like, okay, well, this seems like mostly fixable. But then I like looked a little closer, and the frame, the seat stay was cracked. And then, also realized the straps of my frame bag had been ripped off in the impact too. So my frame bag was ruined. And so, yeah, at that point, pretty much thought I had just spent, 3 months of my life, like, preparing for this massive undertaking to have like the worst thing in the world happen, like, before, like 3 years before. So I was like, it's over. I'm going to go back to Durango, figure out what
this is a carbon bike too. Just, I don't know if you mentioned it, but for people listening, yeah, it wasn't steel where you could just weld it back together. It's carbon.
Right. It's carbon. Exactly. And so, yeah, I was like, going to have to figure out what I'm going to have to do for the month of June, I guess. But we stopped and we turned around, started heading home, and we stopped in Missoula, Montana for the night.
Oh,
and
so you actually were like, you were headed home.
Yeah, because
I didn't know
like,
that.
We can't go forward. Like, what's the point?
Okay.
And so we stopped in Missoula, and that night I texted Russ. He's like Russ Roca of Pathless Pedaled, and because he's like the only person I know in Missoula. And I was like, I first asked him if he knew anyone that could repair my frame bag, because I was too embarrassed to ask him about the frame. I was just like, I was kind of hopeless at that point, but I was like, well, maybe I can fix the frame bag. And so, but he did. He put me in touch with Bedrock Sandals. And they were like, yeah, come by the shop first thing in the morning. We'll sew it back up. I was like, great. And then I was like, okay, Russ, do you know anyone that would be willing to fix a carbon frame, And because at that time, Adam and I were like YouTubing how to fix a carbon frame with like fiber materials that you can buy from a hardware store. And so I was like, I really don't want to do that. Like, I would like it to be, repaired, or to try to find a replacement bike. But I knew finding a replacement bike wasn't going to be possible just because the global bike shortage. So I was like, I just really want to fix my bike. Yeah, he didn't know of anyone at first, like definitely not in Missoula. But then he came back later and was like, maybe reach out to Pursuit Cycles in Bozeman and see if they would help you. They're like a custom carbon manufacturer in Bozeman. And so I emailed them that night and, explained my situation. And when I woke up and then the next morning, by the time I woke up, I had an email back from Carl at Pursuit Cycles saying that, they don't normally do repairs, but because I'm, doing the Tour Divide and trying to do all this stuff, they would see if they could help me. But we just have to get to Bozeman. The bike would have to be totally stripped down, and then they would like wrap it and bake it, and then I could take it back and build it back up. So I was still daunted by all that, but reality had shifted. There was hope, So next day we just saw Bedrock Sandals and they fixed the bag. And then we drove, 3.5 hours to Bozeman, had my buddy Adam Sklar strip my bike down, took it to Pursuit. They're going to keep it overnight and have it ready for me the next morning. So picked it up the next morning. Ultra Cycles built it up before they opened. And by noon the next day, I was back en route to get to the start, which it was pretty dang incredible. And it really like that, community, that whole effort to get me back on the bike, just like, I think it just gave me so much momentum throughout my ride. Like, I was just so full of gratitude, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. I was going to ask the question, mentally, how did that impact you like before the race and then even like during the race? Were you worried about it breaking? Like, did it kind of set you off on it sounds like it set you off on a great tone. You were just like so grateful.
Yeah, it set me off on a really good tone. I wasn't worried. I actually think my bike is stronger now with that carbon repair. People are like, "Are you gonna throw it away?" And I was like, "No, it works great." It's a really good repair. They're total professionals. Like it's a really solid repair. And I wasn't worried about it. And I was just kind of more fueled by that gratitude and just that moment of like realizing that the ride was over and the crisis that lasted probably like 6 hours, and then the night, I was like not sleeping. And then the next day, my reality had totally changed again. So I didn't have to sit in that dark place for a very long time. The light came through the tunnel and, I could see the light. And, and then, when my handle, I don't know if you saw that my handlebars eventually cracked because of, they probably received a lot of the impact, but they seemed okay, when we were building the bike back up. So we just used them. But 1,000 miles into my ride, they cracked. And, so again, had to kind of do the same thing over again. Like I was like texting friends, like, who do you know at Envy that can send me some bars? Like, and to Pinedale, 300 miles down the route. And so, again, got put in touch with someone at Envy and they sent a replacement handlebar to geared up in Pinedale. And then I just rode for like 300 miles without riding in the drops. So, because it was the drop part that was broken and I could ride in the hoods and the tops and stuff. But
yeah, that's definitely doable. And one of the nice things about drop bars too, because I've done that same thing where you just that flare part that comes out can crack. Yeah. How did you train? You said you didn't ride over 100 miles. You're obviously in Durango, so you're in an excellent place for training. Yeah. What was your training strategy going into this?
Yeah, so I did like some weekend overnight bike tours. And again, like I didn't do, in the winter, I spend my winters in Arizona. So I was able to get a lot of like good riding in Arizona. But when I got back to Durango I just was a little bit more limited on time. So I would do weekend bike tours. And then during the week, I kind of, my partner, Adam, used to race road bikes and stuff like that. So he kind of has like an idea of like real training schedules. But yeah, I just kind of set up a daily thing. The overall goal was just to be riding every day, get used to riding my bike every single day. And I would just do different things those days. And really it was all about keeping variety in my routine. So one day I'd be riding my mountain bike. The next day I'd ride my gravel bike. Sometimes I'd ride my e-gravel bike, like I was just riding all different kinds of bikes, all different kinds of rides. I did some of that like long, slow distance and I did some like mashing. I did core workouts and kettlebell workouts just to kind of like build my, my core fitness. And I was really relying on the fact that, I know how to live on my bike. I've done long.
Right. You're very comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. And then I've also done lots of like long distance, single day gravel rides. So, I know that like I have the ability to ride the distance depending on the course. And I also just like tend to, on my own time, on my own like bike tours, I tend to do rides that are more technical and, more climbing than what the Tour Divide has, or the Great Divide mountain bike, which is all very, very rideable. Aside from a few short passes there, it's all really rideable. So
that was one thing that kind of stuck out to me in your interview with, I only know her as Jambi. How do you say her name?
Georgia.
Georgia?
Yep.
Okay. One thing that I took away from y'all's interview was that it seemed like you were, if we're talking about expectation versus reality, the reality of the Tour Divide or Great Divide route for you was that it was easier than what you were used to.
Yeah. It was. The course was, yeah.
I've never done the Tour Divide. Can you describe for people who maybe have never done it, like what it's like? And I think for you to say, well, it's easier than I expected. I mean, that's kind of a big statement, you know?
It is a big statement. And I feel, like, again, you got to look at me from my perspective as someone that, does stuff like this a lot. And so I'm coming from that. If you're totally new to bike touring, it could be the hardest thing you've ever done. So disclaimer there. So the stats of the route are, I think it's like 900 miles of pavement, and then 400 miles of single track, but it's not true single track. I think what they are calling single track on for these 400 miles is also like Jeep road quality stuff, double track or something like that. And then the rest is gravel, smooth, like gravel roads. And I say smooth, and I mean like drivable 2-wheel drive kind of gravel roads. And so within that, you're getting roads that are washboard, which is, can be really challenging. And then also, you're riding on the Continental Divide. So it's about 100 for our ride, which was border to border. It was 2,400 miles with about 150,000 feet of climbing. So yeah, it's, for me, that was like an average amount of climbing of 7,000 feet per day, which again, that's more than I actually normally do. But, over the course of 120 or 130 miles, like it's actually not as, consistently steep as where I normally spend time riding my bike. So yeah, I would say that's kind of how I'd say it was very, rideable in the sense that there's just a lot of just gravel roads,
The other thing that I heard you say that I never heard anyone else say was that it was, I think you said it, that it was like laid out, that the route is so good that the scenery is always like pretty interesting and beautiful.
Yeah, I really thought that. I was really impressed. There were very, few moments where you're like, oh, this is a crappy part route. It was all just really beautiful. All the regions that they were able to map through and really connect, just kept it really interesting and fun. Yeah, that was nice.
It's funny. I've talked to so many people that have done the Tour Divide, obviously, and no one has ever, I've never heard anyone say that. But you would hope it would be beautiful, and all the pictures you see are beautiful and stuff, but I've never actually heard anyone say it. And so I was kind of curious about that.
Yeah. I wonder if they're just like looking down the whole time. That's definitely something you kind of notice when you're riding so far a distance every single day. Like you're not really absorbing, your surroundings as much. You're kind of just like head down focus on the road ahead, the road ahead of you. So that could be a thing.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it just depends on where your interest or, attention is.
Right.
Let's talk about gear a little bit. I know that you were concerned about your bivvy. I know this from Jambi's video that y'all did. That was pretty entertaining, where you got the garden hose on you and stuff. So I believe you took that bivvy with you. How did it work? Because I know you also got rained on pretty well. So
Right. Well, it worked really great until I started getting rained on a lot. And it wasn't a matter of the rain soaking through the bivvy. It was a matter of like packing up and unpacking every day, like in the rain and getting my stuff wet. And so it wasn't a problem in Montana when it was raining because, the sun would come out and then I would just dry all my stuff out and then repack it. It was all good. But when I got down to like Southern Colorado and New Mexico, it was just raining all the time and the sun wasn't coming out. There was no opportunity to dry things out. So at that point, that was probably the most like mentally challenging part for me because I was struggling with keeping my stuff dry because all my stuff was just getting wet every single day. And so I just kind of had to tell myself at that point, like, hey, I want to finish. And if I have to get more hotels in this last part than I thought I was going to, then so be it. Like, it's whatever. Like, fine.
You can't control the weather.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I think, looking back, I think if I had a small tent and waterproof bike bags, I think I wouldn't have had much of an issue because.
So a tent for like a staging area, changing clothes, that kind of stuff. You could even cook in there.
Exactly. And it would just give me more confidence and peace of mind just to be out there in really bad conditions. And then, the bike bags would just keep all my stuff dry. And so, and it's just so funny because like, I just never expected so much rain on the Tour Divide. It's kind of very an uncommon amount of rain that we got this year. And, I just read things from previous years that just people didn't see rain very much at all. And that was another reason why I was like doing it in June, because I was like, I don't want to be in Durango in June because it's so hot and dry, and that's how it's going to be. And I might as well just like be kind of like doing something, keeping myself occupied. But it turned out to be very rainy, which I just kept telling myself, like, this is good for the earth, the New Mexico.
Nice. I like that.
And, I just kept saying that, like, I tried not to take it personally, even though I started taking it personally in the end.
I have an obscure gear question for you. So I saw on one of these videos, and I couldn't see, the whole picture didn't show, but you had a string that was like laced through like your water bottle and through your bike. And do you know what I'm talking about?
A string that was connected to my bivvy?
It looked okay. So I asked Jambi about it. Sorry, I'll just call her Jambi.
Yeah.
And she thought it was you had maybe attached it to your bike to keep the bivvy up off of you, how you pull with a string.
Yep.
And I didn't know if it was like a safety thing because it looked like it had been weaved through a lot of your gear or something to where it's like, okay, well, if someone comes and takes my bike in the middle of the night, it'll like pull the string or something.
Yeah. If it was strung through my bike in some way, that was not intentional, but yes, it is a string connected to my bivvy that keeps like the head face area kind of off of my face. And so normally I just use it to tie to like a tree, but sometimes I don't have a tree. I tie it to my handlebars. So maybe that's what you're saying.
Okay.
Kind of like tie it to some place on the bike that will keep it off of my face. So yeah.
Sorry, just I just saw that string and I was, my curious mind perked up and I'm like, what is that going on? What secret does Sarah know about?
Yep.
So, I mean, you're done now. What would you do differently, if anything? Hindsight's 2020. I mean, how did your race go overall? Are you, it sounds like you're really happy with it, but I mean, going back and doing it again, what would you change?
Gosh, well, maybe the tent and the waterproof bags, but honestly, like, I am so dang happy with how I did. Like, I exceeded my expectations in so many ways, and I'm like so satisfied by like how I felt when I was doing that ride. And so, like, the only thing that I could do to do this ride again would be to like really race it and like not sleep and stuff. But I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to do that. And,
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And so I want to, I would like to do more of these kinds of challenges in the future, but, in different places, around the world and stuff like that. So I'd love to do more of these, but with the same kind of goal I had with this is just to like kind of find my happy balance of, pushing myself to my limit, but also maintaining like just a healthy balance with everything.
Well, I mean, that's one thing we talk about a lot. And one of the really neat and appealing things about these types of races or efforts or whatever is, anyone can do it and everybody can do it their own way. You can not sleep, you could tour it, you can, you can stay at a hotel every chance you get. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's up for you to decide how you want to approach it. But there's no doubt that like finishing the Tour Divide is huge. It doesn't matter if you come in second place or last place. It's a huge accomplishment. Did you like learn anything about yourself? Do you have any like takeaways 2 weeks off the Tour Divide that like, you were out there for 3 weeks, any takeaways from your experience?
I mean, I think what I took away is just that, like, I'm capable of so much. And that was an awesome realization. Like I'm capable more than I kind of think most of the time. And that was really great. I think I took away just like this, huge amount of like gratitude for community, which I didn't expect. I really thought I was going to go into this ride and feel alone out there. But the last thing I felt was alone. I felt just, so supported. Yeah. And I just learned that, order 2 extra things at a restaurant and put them in your bike bag for meals later. Cause that's, that was like the easiest thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to make my normal like tortillas every night, like make myself some dinner. But that was too hard. It's too hard to like motivate and also find those ingredients all the time. It's just easier to get that stuff at a restaurant, which, I just never really did that before. And then also just learned how to live in one chamois for 3 weeks. That was a totally new thing for me. So totally had to work that out. And I feel kind of good about my system that I ended up with.
So I'll tell you Brendan's system. He actually didn't have any saddle sores either. He brought 2 different chamois. The first time I'd heard about anyone doing that, but he brought 2 different kinds, and so that it would interact with your sit bones and the saddle just a little bit differently.
Okay.
And then he would wash one, let it dry, and then have one they would use, and then switch them out, which sound like, for him, he was racing. He was like, I'm going to try to, take this. Whenever he found himself in that position, he's like, I'm going to try. And that's a time suck. It's a little bit of a time suck. But yeah, what was your strategy? It sounds like it worked as well.
Yeah, well, so I had gone into it because I don't normally wear chamois. Like I usually wear like merino underwear with overshorts. And so, but then once I started riding the distances I was riding, I was like, okay, the chamois is more comfortable and I would like to wear this, more. So, so what I did was, I would just try to wash it as much as possible. So I would wash it in, creeks, but I would also go to laundromats. I went to a lot of laundromats, and anytime I got a room, I just tried to make sure I was staying in a place that had laundry. And so, I would wash it, as frequently as I could. And then I just kind of had a nightly routine of like baby wipes, tea tree oil. And then I bought some like natural baby diaper rash cream that I would put on after all that stuff. Yeah. Everything stayed really healthy and clean and clear. And that was good.
My girlfriend, who is also named Sarah, spelled the same way, will be happy to hear you say tea tree. She loves that stuff and puts it on everything.
Yeah, it's really good for saddle sores and hot spots and stuff. And it kills whatever's trying to grow there with overnight. So anytime I had something that I could feel, I would put that on, and then it would clear up the next day, which was awesome. It's a magic ointment for sure.
A magic ointment. Yeah. She's just turned me on to tea tree recently. At first I was put off by the smell of it. But once you get over the smell, it's all good. So I know you are headed, where are you headed, to Iceland? What else you got going on?
Yeah, I'm headed to Iceland next week, and then I'm doing the Steamboat Gravel Race in August. I'm also registered to do a multi-day, a stage gravel race in British Columbia, but I'm kind of up in the air about that, I think, right now. And then end of August, first 2 weeks of September, Adam and I are going to Crete to do a bike tour together. So that'll be really fun. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to that the most, I think, out of everything.
Just be able to do it at your speed, take your time.
Yeah.
Whatever.
He's my number one like travel companion. We have so much fun. We've traveled all around the world together, and we'll just be doing our thing. We'll be riding from beach to beach and eating awesome food and camping and just like enjoying ourselves out there, just living the life, having a little vacation, because he's been in, he's getting his master's degree in social work. So he hasn't been able to travel with me or to do very many rides over the past year and a half. So, this is something I'm really excited for. So
social work, that's, I was going to say exciting. I don't know if that's exciting, but it's a much needed. We need people that are doing that.
Yeah,
so
for sure. And it's hard work, it sounds, from
It is. I know people have done it, and I mean, you kind of carry those stories and all that stuff with you. I mean, it can be difficult to like interact with people who are struggling on a daily basis. So yeah, it's not a job everybody can do, and so that's why I say we appreciate people that can do it.
yeah.
So all these events that you're doing, how much are you in control of your schedule? Are you getting to pick the things? Are you just a lot of opportunities that are coming your way and you're like, I'll do that one, that one? Like how does that work out?
Yeah, it just kind of, for the gravel races, before COVID started, Specialized had kind of created a gravel team that we didn't actually end up doing because of COVID. So I was signed up for these gravel races, through that. And, but the team no longer exists. So I'm just like, these registrations are just carried over from last year. I was supposed to do these last year. And so I'm doing them this year instead. So that's kind of how that happened. In terms of like the Tour Divide, honestly, I was not like really thinking about doing it, but my friend Aria, she had reached out to me in the winter and was like, I'm going to do this. You should do it too. And I was like, oh God, no. And so I like sat on it, for a few months. And it was just always kind of in the back of my mind. And I just kind of wanted to figure out something to do, again, and I've been, kind of readjusting my traveling and my riding just because Adam's no longer, traveling and riding with me. So I'm doing more solo stuff. So I'm kind of like, just kind of figuring out more things that I want to do solo. And so this kind of just kept being in the back of my mind until I met, Pearlie, who was also doing the Tour Divide. And Pearlie was doing the Sky Islands Odyssey route in February or March. And she came through just like on this day where my parents were visiting. And I was like, I think I'm going to do the Tour Divide. Not 100% sure, but I'm really leaning towards it. And then Pearlie shows up and she's like, I'm training for the Tour Divide. And Pearlie turned out to be an awesome person. We chatted for a really long time. And then after that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Committed, and so that's how it went.
I wanted to talk about, you raised money for the Karen Project?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or Karen Project? Karen
like,
Project?
Keep saying it because it sounds like it's the Karen Project.
Yeah.
It's the Karen Project. Yeah. So what they do is they're an organization that allows people to use their platform to fundraise for various different grants that go to outdoor programs that increase access to the outdoors amongst teen girls and preteen girls. And so I just really loved that format that they were doing. And I was like, well, this would be, I was coaching Durango Devo Explorers, which is like a youth cycling program here in Durango. And so I was doing some coaching with them. And yeah, for me, my experience as a teen and preteen was very, I had wished I had had an outlet like cycling at that age because it would have helped me in terms of like how much trouble I ended up causing later down the road. Yeah. But yeah, so I felt really called to those grants. And so, yeah, just reached out to them, saw if I could, and they were all about it. And so we just launched it. And my original goal was $5,000 because that's how much one grant to one organization is. And I actually reached that goal before the ride even started. So I increased the goal to 8,000. So yeah.
That stood out to me. I have 2 daughters and hopefully they'll be cyclists. If not, it's okay. But definitely have an interest in, I love to speak to women and that are great examples of, you can do anything you want to do. And Kern Project, I mean, I have a 12-year-old daughter that like fits right in there. And so I agree, man. Keep them busy. The kids, I got into a lot of trouble just, if you're left to your own devices. I mean, I think it's good to have something that you're passionate in and then, try to foster that along. And so just having those opportunities are really important. So I thought that was a cool thing that you did on top of just, going to ride it, but actually finding, a way to give back as well.
Yeah. I thought it was actually like really productive because, there's so much, people just love the Tour Divide. So it just naturally just engaged so many more people. And so I was able to use that momentum to raise money, which was really great and effective, I thought. And, just like finding what you love to do at a younger age, like finding the fact that the outdoors is a place that you can feel free and, do things that you love. Like, to me, I think that's just so important. And, because I didn't know that, I didn't know that until I got, graduated from high school. I was like, oh, this is where I belong. This is where I feel my best. And my life changed drastically once I realized that. Like, I was headed in one direction before and then a totally different direction after. And so, just maybe a little earlier introduction would have kind of saved, my parents, my teachers, my coaches, all some heartache, myself. Some heartache.
It's I've found that the outdoors is almost like an adult playground. I mean, it's endless exploring, playing outside. I mean, that's kind of the way I approach it. Is the same way I did as an 8-year-old when I hopped on my bike and just left the house and went exploring and went into ditches and whatever we got into. That's the way I kind of look at it. And if you can embrace that as a young age, that playground is always there for you.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, listen, I have taken up all of your time plus a little bit more.
Yeah, no worries.
I do appreciate, though. It is really, I've followed your Instagram for a long time. I've been kind of a fan of, I like your approach to, the sport. And of course, everybody can do it their own way. The way you approach it appeals to me. And it's just, great to actually get to sit down and chat with you a little bit and get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do so. And thanks for having me and for following,
Yeah, of course. Hey, that's why you put on social media. Yeah. So if anyone wants to follow you on social media, don't expect a DM back, but
exactly.
I'm kidding.
Pretty slow on the DMs. And, I do check in though. And, but again, like a great thing to do would be to sign up for my newsletter, which you can do on my website. Just hit the dispatch button in the homepage. And through that,
and is that just sarahswallow.com?
That's sarahjswallow.com. Through that, you'll get, the latest updates from me. You'll get more of like my personal side, and you'll get notified about, events that I put on and any fun projects that I'm doing. And you'll be the first to know.
Awesome. Well, I am signed up. So all y'all sign up too. And again, appreciate it. Thanks for being on Team Bike, another great ambassador of the sport.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And let's wish Sarah Swallow some good fortune as she travels to Iceland to compete in that gravel event. I'm sure she's going to do great and have a great time, and certainly appreciate her coming on the podcast and chatting with us for a little bit. All right, I want to remind you, head over to Ruby Coffee Roasters and check out all their great coffee lineup. They have been a great partner. I'm really looking forward to working with them because they are run by a cool guy and they're a cool company, but also they have really, really good coffee. So remember that at checkout, you can get 15% off one-time purchase or 20% off when you sign up for a subscription. And all you got to do is use that code Bikes for Death at checkout. So make sure to go over there, show them some love and appreciation for stepping up to be a supporting partner of the Bikes for Death show. And another reminder that the next Bikes for Death after party episode is coming out here in the next couple days with Claire Panisha. That is going to be available to patrons only. So you can sign up over at patreon.com/Bikes for Death for as little as $1 a month and get access to that as well as past shows and future shows. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I've got another great episode lined up for next week, and I can't wait to get it out to you. So until then, be kind, don't forget to rewind, and go ride your damn bike.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes.